an opportunity to just talk about my stuff, you say. Don't mind if I do. Tales from Elsewhere is hosting a collab about Barbarian design. I know a thing or two about Barbarians, and if you've watched the videos on my channel, you know I talk a lot about Barbarians. I have opinions about Barbarians as a character concept, as a class, as an idea. So in this, I'm going to be talking about how Song and Steel does Barbarians. Because I was starting from the ground up, I didn't have any preconceptions that I had to fit to, and I had a lot of freedom to develop Barbarians the way that I see the archetype functioning. So I knew I wanted to do two things. I wanted this to be a tough character in a way that is different than other tough characters. And then I also need it to be an escalating damage dealer. So the way I did this, there's the two other tanky kind of character types, the fighter and the paladin. And they have high armor. They are literally going to be reducing damage by a flat amount. The paladin reduces all damage incoming by 3. The fighter increases all damage incoming by 2, unless they are defending an ally, in which case they get an additional damage reduction. And then there may be skills and things that add on to that. So damage reduction, so that you sort of measure out and ration the amount of damage that you take at once to keep it manageable. Barbarians don't do that as much. They start with only 1 damage reduction, which is sort of most characters' minimum. There's a few characters in this game that have 0. Most of them are at 1 or higher. So they start at 1. Light armor, like hide, leather, whatever it is that you're wearing. But you also start with more health than any other character in the game. Everyone else caps out at 7. A few people are less than 7. I think the wizard is 5. Everyone else is 6 or 7. The barbarian starts at 8 at level 1, and every time you increase in level, you get an additional health. No one else's health in the entire game scales. So you already have that sense of I've got a lot of reserve durability, but it's kind of soft. It's what's the word? Ablative. It will go away over time. And so it sort of requires a bit more attention to stay on top of it so you don't end up hitting 0. So scaling health, and then they get an ability that makes it so that for every 5 damage that is marked on them, they get +1 to their damage resistance up to a maximum of 3. So at level 1, you actually can only have up to 2 because you only have 8 health, so you can't get that third one. But once you can take 10 damage and have that marked on you at once, you actually can be as durable as a paladin. You sort of the last few points of barbarian health is actually really hard to get through. And this is all, by the way, data from a playtest. We did a campaign where we had a barbarian, and this is what I observed on that barbarian. So you become just you are. Barbarians might actually arguably be the toughest character in the game. I don't think the paladin or the fighter actually can take as much damage as the barbarian in a standard scenario. You also, every time you take damage, every time you mark damage on your sheet, you gain rage. Now, for those of you who have seen me talk about barbarians before, you know that I actually have issues with the way that 5th edition handles rage, where it is a binary, you either have it or you don't kind of thing. And let me tell you why this is better and this is different. Because rage is not a state that you are in, it is a resource that you've gained. So you have rage, and then you spend rage to do thing. And what do you spend rage to do? Well, I'll tell you. While you have rage, when you go and do violence against somebody, you can spend your rage and you can mark 1 fatigue to do additional damage equal to half the amount of damage that is currently marked on you, which I think is just fantastic. Not to toot my own horn, but let me toot my own horn here for a second. I think that's really cool. So if, let's say, you're at that 10 health, or 10 damage marked on you. So you have your 3 damage resistance. You have 10 health. That's plus 5 damage in a game where your base damage number is equal to half your level rounded down, which means at level 10, which is the level cap at maximum level, base damage is 5. And if you've taken 10 damage, you're doing double damage. Oh my gosh, you're doing. So in this game, there's a few classes that are categorized as like high damage classes. The sorcerer, the warlock, the ranger. They are getting bonuses to damage, and they're gonna end up being about at that, where it's like most classes do half level of damage. High damage classes may do up to twice that much. The barbarian hits those numbers and can actually push itself further. The barbarian has actually hit a higher damage output in a single hit than any other character I've seen in my playtest so far. I think it got over 20. It was crazy. So it does just massive amounts of damage. It is gonna be ripping into boss enemies, solo monsters, these end game boss characters, and just grabbing chunks of their health and ripping it out and saying, "Do it again." This barbarian is so cool. And it's not just combat abilities. Every class in Song and Steel has 1 or 2 abilities that are specifically about either like social interactions or exploration or things like that. These sort of like the non-combat pillars of play, as it were. The barbarian in Song and Steel has the ability to consult the spirits of a local area. They can commune with the spirits and gain information about the local environment or a specific situation, etc. So you have like the spiritual side of barbarians in addition to this sort of like primal rage-fueled warrior archetype. That's the barbarian in Song and Steel. It's not my favorite class, but it's one of the coolest class. I think it might be the class that I'm most happy with design-wise. It's just that I personally don't really go for barbarians as a general rule. It's not my aesthetic, but I'm really pleased with how it turned out.